What is 3dwi.scr? Well, 3dwi.scr is a 3D worker island freeware screensaver. And the weirdest part about this screensaver is that the original source of the program is unknown. So we don't know who created this. However, we do know that Pat Lawler, or P. Lawler in short, and Singer were the one who discovered the program. They took charge and created a discovery page to share it on the internet, encouraging everyone to give it a try. Now, what's so special about the screensaver is that in 3D Workers Island, 6 characters interact on a small tiny island with complex and unpredictable results. Every section tells a different story of the island. The event that occurs in 3dwi.scr are not scripted. They unfold dynamically and every section is different, which means you are guaranteed to see things that none of us have ever seen before. So basically, it's kind of like a random number generated story or RNG story. You can think of a random thing and the screensaver will do exactly that, but at a very random time, which is kind of cool. To understand more about this, we need a dialogue and dive deep into this mysteriously cool screensaver and find out ourselves. We are introduced to 6 characters: Pat, Rebecca, Joe, Amber, Howland, and Grace. This might be not important, but I noticed that 5 of the characters are in a proper standing position except for one, Amber. The way the character stands feels like she's probably tired or something. Also, Gray is facing the opposite direction compared to the others, which is kinda odd. And so the random story begins with Joe watering the flowers, then Amber shows up and they both look at each other. Joe started walking towards Amber. Suddenly the screen jumped to Word, which represents the internet. Now, this forum is just people sharing their thoughts about the game itself, so I won't read it much. You can pause the video and read it for yourself if you like. There will be some part like this that I'm going to skip later on the video, so be prepared. And here's another random story. Notice how Pat, Rebecca, Joe, Amber, and Howland are enjoying a party together, while Grace is just sitting there, looking at the ocean. In this RNG story, nobody ever approaches Grace. Oddly weird, isn't it? Continue of the previous forum, people just sharing their thoughts about the game itself. Some people liked, some were confused, but there's this one comment that felt a bit too, what can I say, personal. I want to know what you guys are doing because I'm just starting up the program and watching it and nothing is happening. People are standing around, sitting around, looking around, walking around. Pat Lawyer replies, "Which characters are you talking about? You know some people have worked hard enough in their life and deserve a rest already. But no, seriously, what do you mean? I see plenty of activity on the islands. I do feel a twinge of annoyance when I see a character like Amber sitting around. I want to tell her, hey, you are young, do something." The part which he said, "I do feel a twinge of annoyance when I see a character like Amber sitting around," make it seems like she has some kind of dislike for Amber, even though she's just a polygon program designed to do random things. You shouldn't take something like personal like this. In another story, we see Joe reading while Pat walk around the island looking around and start chatting with Rebecca when she shows up. But Grace is still the same as before, just sitting and look down. At this point, I usually think it's just an RNG screensaver story with everything happening at a random times, but this time feels a little bit different. The fact that Great seems like more than just a polygon, like she has an actual personality and emotion compared to the other, make it feel less random, almost like it wasn't random at all. We are now on the 3D Screensaver palette software page. Notice how everything from screen shape to 3D cape 2 is fully described with image and detail, but 3D Workers Island? It just describes that an island with people walking around on it. Strangely weird, isn't it? On the next random story, we see Rebecca sitting on a bench while Amber is mowing the lawn, even stepping outside the island. Probably just a technical problem in the program, nothing too important about this part. Here's an overview of the program itself. We now know that these characters are powered by a type of AI technology referred to by the author as worker simulation, which should not be taken lightly. In short, this AI is highly advanced, capable of generating infinitive possible stories on its own. Pat Lawler seemed to have an obsession with this program. She says, I have been keeping 3dwi Screensaver running on the desk in my study, bedroom, living room, kitchen, and basement all throughout the day. It's still continuously fresh and novel to me. And pay attention to this next line. You will notice that the island is quiet. 3dwi does not play audio. This usually makes sense as Screensaver back then rarely included audio, given that most people probably don't turn it on or didn't want it. Moving on to the next random story, we see Amber and Howler sitting together. It feels like to me that Amber wants some time to be alone. This is starting to feel weirder for me, like I'm questioning if Amber also have emotion and personality like Grace, because I swear Amber feels less random in this scene compared to the others, except Grace. Frank Gapper says, this is for my son Island project for first grade. We took second place in the contest. I'm proud of him. Okay, I will admit he mostly played pajama Sam while mom and I built the island. But he did written part of the assignment himself. Anyway, here's the photo. Unfortunately, we don't know what it looked like, but imagine it represents the 3D worker island itself. As for the replies, some are congrats, while the others are somewhat harsh. However, Pat Laurer response seemed to be a hint at being against something. You did a good job with the island. I have some advice. You should not do your son work for him. Do not let him get used to the idea that you would do his assignment. Take it from a fellow parents. This revealed that Pat Laurer was also a parent. At first, I thought this was a reasonable response, but something about the message feels oddly similar to the previous comment where Pat says, I do feel a twinge of annoyance when I see characters like Amber sitting around. Both seem to indicate a connection between Pat kids in the real world and Amber in the virtual world. While both instances could be coincidence, I need to dig deeper into this theories. Frank Zarber responds, thanks, appreciate it. But they were expecting parents to help with this one. You should see what the other kids brought in. Anyway, he did the written part, as I said, which made me think that Pat wasn't even thinking before speaking. She was just speaking out loud to point it out. And this is where things are going to get a little bit weird from now on. Buddy said, my son doesn't like the 3D Workers Island one bit. It scares him, and he made me turn it off. Johnson says, kids are afraid of everything. My wife and I rented a tape of the Page Master to watch it with her niece, and unfortunately we got to the moment where Macaulay Culkin in the library and get overtaken and drowned in the river of pain, and suddenly the tape went nuts and became unreadable. Her niece started screaming. Now she is afraid of getting drowned in pain and turning into a cartoon. I don't blame the people who made that movie for making a terrifying Macaulay Culkin character get drowned in the pain, but some kids really do think it is possible to get swallowed up into a cartoon prison where they can't escape. And hell, if I believe in that, I'll be afraid too. From the way Johnson said it, I completely understand why Buddy's son was so afraid of it. Not just him, but also me included. I can imagine how Buddy's son might feels when he's being trapped inside the 3D workers island with nothing to do but being forced to program random tasks on a single island in the middle of the ocean forever. Up next, we can see Amber start to back away from Pat. They have a random conversation until Amber suddenly sits down, almost as if she is having a breakdown, while Pat continued talking to her. This is oddly weird considering this is just a random story, but it feels a bit too real to me. Following the forums, there wasn't much to talk about, just that Good Kid got detention for dress code violation, then shows his or her computer lab teacher the 3D worker islands, and the teacher got hooked on it, starting to install it on all the computers. Then he and she had to tell his or her sweet and angelous mom why he and she was still at school, which is kinda strange because I've never seen any kid around that age call their parents like that. Well, the word sweet is alright, but adding sweet and angelous together, which gets kinda rare. But I want you to remember that Good Kid profile is marked in red, indicating she's a banned user. Good Kid also claimed to have invented something called cutilacune, a fake skin disease during her assignments, which literally got nothing to do with it. If you search it online, it really had no meaning behind it, but we do have some explanation from Good Kid. Cutilacune, skin disease with 4 stages. Stage 0, redness and sensitivity. Stage 1, skin gaps, holes or gaps of various size, exposing dermis. Stage 2, skin islands, widespread loss of epidermis, leaving only a number of skin islands of various size. Stage 3, resections of the islands, leading to complete loss of epidermis. Early stage can be treated and reversed, but stage 3 is irreversible. Stage 1, 2, and 3 are consistently rated 10 on the 1 to 10 pain scale, screaming and hair pulling and despair. Notice how this was written by a 14-year-old kid. Some of the wording is kind of professional and consistently mentioned the word islands, almost as if it is describing the 3D workers island itself. Very strange. Moving forward, we see Howland just playing around like a toddler, while Pat seemed to be standing in the middle of the islands watching Amber, who is pushing a car full of red spears, I think. It almost feels like Pat is observing Amber while she does her job. Very eerie. There's not much content I can make it out, besides I feel like Pat is forcing Amber to do something. Favorite characters, our next forums. Who's your favorite character? Amber. No question, Amber. Amber's the answer. If I had to choose a favorite, top one. Just joking, it's Amber. Fuck everyone else. Notice how everyone says Amber is their favorite character, but Pat Lawler, on the other hand, had the same exact reaction to Amber as her previous post. Amber would be a good choice and may have been mine, but I am sometimes put off by her lazy tendency. Naturally, I would choose Pat since by coincidence we share the same name and I believe the 2 kids are hers. Another coincidence, as I also have 2 daughters. However, I cannot help but to feel attracted to Rebecca with her eyes-catching red hairs and shoes. It is a difficult question. So she chose Pat as her favorite character because they both share the same name. And Pat having two children in 3D Workers Islands is also another coincidence, as she too has two children in her real world too. Keep in mind that although she says she chose Pat, she cannot help but to prefer Rebecca more, with her eyes catching red hairs and shoes. It's indicates that her favorite color is red, at least from my points of view. Shifting to the next random story, this time the view is zoom out. We see Grace again, acting exactly the same way she always does. Meanwhile, Amber noticed Howland dropping something into the ocean before heading back to the house. Amber, probably looking around, seemed to be trying to pick it up, something we don't know. At this point, I feel like Grace and Amber's are not just advanced AI, but more like actual human being. I know it sounds kinda stupid, but that's how I feel when compared to other characters throughout my readings. Not just Grace and Amber, but also Pat too. She's also seemed to have some kind of personality and emotion behind her that I don't know how to explain. Jumping to a new page, Computer Philosophy, Windows. There are windows everywhere we see them, and anyone could be looking in at you. That's a part of what makes them scary. But windows are even scarier when you're the one who looks in them, because of when you never know what you'll see. Remember the enthusiasm in the market for Window into Reality in 1996 as the Nintendo 64 broke once lore Project Reality. Of course, the TV screen is really a window into fictions and not reality. The only real window of reality is the one we look into as a baby and still cannot turn from. What's called the common story themes of falling into asphalt, imagery. We bring the outside into the inside, and the outside is the place we are stuck looking. This is the only meaning of I'm trapped in the TV, when we find out that reality is the thing we look into. But what does that mean? Where are we? What's happened when something bad you find responsible for is there and you do nothing to stop it because it looks through a window and it's not real? I'm trapped in here and I may never return home. What do we mean? In short, everything we see through the screen might be like reality that's stuck inside virtuality. If we could actually make virtuality enter reality, what would happen? And what if we got stuck inside virtuality? Could we escape from it? Or will we be trapped in there forever with no way out to the real world? Does that make any sense to you guys? I guess not. I'm just saying what I can think of. Wow, tell me more about that. So, I was with my cousin last week for Thanksgiving. Since last year, they live a 3 hours drive away. It got late, and he took me down a dark trail and scared the piss out of me talking about ghosts and... In a quiet moment, I thought I might change the subject, so I started talking about 3dwi, a propose of nothing. Turns out he knew about it, which caught me off guard. And he carried on with the exact same tones as when he was talking about a moment earlier, but now talking about 3dwi, as if telling me about a conspiracy or something. He went on about the girl in the pink shirt and gave me this long list of ominous things to pay attention to in the screensaver. Oh, he is one of the Amber shitheads. Those people basically took down that old discovery page websites a couple years ago. Ruins a good thing. Yeah? Anyway, when we got back, we watched 3dwi together until 2 AM on the slowest, crappiest computer in the world. We watched it until Suddenly, the computer froze completely. But he told me it wasn't really frozen, that actually 3dwi does that on purpose in order to hide things that are happening. I don't know. He was making things up on the spot, but I think they still meant something to him. Things are just getting weirder and weirder every second. Okay, so I almost don't want to ask this at all, but I keep hearing certain implications about the screensaver that I don't want to repeat it here, but you probably know what I'm talking about. I think maybe it's supposed to be a joke, but if so, I don't find it funny at all. Can somebody give me some more info about this? Turn back now, do not go any further. For your own peace of mind, stop this line of inquiry now and do something else. Don't become another one of us freaks. Seriously, I wish I could go back to enjoying this screensaver normally. I want to be a normal person again. Please, God, let me forget. There are links that can be provided if you really want them. I can send them to your email, just let me know. I'm no coward. Here's the links. Go ahead, enjoy. Yeah, that's not gonna last very long. It seems to me that these people in the forums have seen something they didn't think they were supposed to see in a screensaver. Cheers were trying to show it to Buddy, but unfortunately, Pat Lawyer instantly removed it afterward. We see Joe just sitting on a chair on a curved surface. Probably nothing important, just another technical problem. And it looked like Gray's having a conversation with him. As for Helen, to be honest, I'm not sure what she's doing right now. Up next, we're shown a new page called Inside 3dwi.scr. The window of my living room covering the walls with wide views of my front and backyards fill the room with light during the day and an air of vulnerability during the night. My brother crashed here. He sleeps on the couch against the back windows. Sometimes we sit together, looking out those windows and tell stories about the house beyond my backyard. A man lives in a house with his 2 sons. The curtains are closed and we imagine our childhood replaying itself behind them. It's just a stupid game really, making up stories about the neighbors. I think of it as a way to bond over past experience. Somehow we get emotional about it anyway, but not emotional enough to do anything. Because of course, it's a stupid game. There's no point in worrying about those children based on feelings and intuitions alone. Still, we both find that our dreams become more vivid by time. Lately, we've grown exhausted of that game, but I recently downloaded 3D Workers Island. It plays on a PC in the corner of my living room. You should check out this program. It's a screensaver, which means only starts when you're using your computer, but when it starts, you're on an island. There are people around, but they don't do much, not when they're outside anyway. Naturally, you wonder what they might be doing inside the windowless rest house in the background. That's when things start to go wrong, when you start wondering that. And now we begin another game. As in life, concern begets more concerns. The reality is always worse than you think. No matter how much you learn, it's always worse. And the only escape is to stop asking, stop digging, to stop learning. This is your chance to stop. The preferred resource for all things 3D Workers Island is called 3dwi.scr Discovery Page, created and maintained by Pat Lawler. It's covered everything a reasonable person would want to know. You should browse her website first if you haven't already, because it's quite good. But Pat Lawler doesn't see what we see, or choose not to. I've created a different kind of resource. Here, I take your sighting and I display them for the benefit of others. Together, we play this game the way it's meant to be played. welcome to my website, inside 3dwi.scr. Beyond here is themes of violence, abuse, and tortures. This page covers every single aspect about the hidden stuff, the strange, and the weird things that this screensaver shows. Even though it's supposed to be a randomly generated story that shouldn't be produced anything that's literally impossible to do. Now we see Joe, Howland, and Amber sitting on a bench. Joe is probably just looking around doing random things, while Howler and Amber sitting on a bench. Notice how only Amber is facing in a different direction. Continue on the question mark forum page. Potlayer replies, I removed your link because it breaks the following rules. Rule 5. Do not post link to the website. You know the one. It is nothing more than a collection of perverted creative writing prompts. I would not usually be so strict about something like this, but clearly there's too many here who cannot stay reasonable in saying what disgusting thing the content of this particular website, so I must make a hard decision of banning it. You can guess what I think about this topic, but let me try to explain the phenomenon occurring here. The fact is, many internet users are children and young adults, and children like to play games. What does this mean is, you will occasionally find yourself unknowingly pulled into the game played by children. On the website, you will primarily find stories told by kids to scare other kids. You also find so-called analysis of these stories that treat them as true fact to give them legitimacy, but there's no evidence to be found there. I hope I have cleared things up for you, buddy. Shut up, Pat. Anyway, more links. Thank you, Pat Lawler. Well said. Those violent stories are cheesy and over the top. Blood and guts. Believe me, I've been watching this program for so long. I would have seen such things by now. Chill reply. If the screensaver won't open up to you, maybe you need to look within yourself to find the problem. You'll love to think it's all just bloody screaming children. Long before I began seeing the violent shit, I saw the way Amber was treated by the other islanders. I saw her tiredness. I saw her subtle messes. But you just point at the bleeding children and laugh. Alright then. Why is it always Amber who get abused and in these makeup scenarios? Don't get why this community have an obsession with her specifically. Maybe I should create my own section for dealing with these hosts. Snoop.com have a good system for these. I will give every one of these stories the red spheres of falseness. False, false, false. Pat Lawyer also replies, good question. People have insane amounts of concern for Amber. It is a mystery to me. 12PT says, Jesus Christ, that website. The screenshots and pictures on there are insane. Some of them are obviously straight out of Photoshop. Others, I don't know. They are all low quality JPEGs for what it's worth. It makes it easy to hide flaws. Pat and Singer have a point, but it's still bothering me that most of the users in this forum did witness that there is something wrong with the screensaver. Something wrong with Amber herself, but not Pat Lawler and Singer? How come they cannot see, but the other cans? We don't know. Once again, we can sense the hatred toward Pat Lawler coming with this rating key. Notice how she called false at the red spheres of falseness and then repeated the word false, false, false. We also know that 12PT said the website seemed to be a host because it looked straight out of Photoshop and it's unknown whether it is real or not from our perspective. Next up in this random scene, we see Howland seem to keep walking towards the house like a clueless NPC, and then she just look around. There isn't much context I can make out for this scene at all, so it's probably not important. Welcome to Inside 3dwi.scr. Here you'll find the content missing from Pat Lawyer, 3dwi.scr discovery page. Her website should be your source of general information about Screensaver, but come back here when you're done. Pick a category on the left and browse our collection of user-submitted sightings. Download 3dwi.scr and let us know what you find by submitting a sighting. Thank you for visiting and telling us your stories. March 95, the year 1999. I'm receiving so many emails about this San Fierro business, though there are not much contentions in whether the screenshot of Amber rare black shirt is real. There's a lot of disagreement about whether the pictures on the shirt is really San Fierro, since it doesn't exactly match any of the known publicly released photos of him. I've even expanded the section to include some of your comments. On the subject of the photos, I removed a user-submitted photo from PGR-Pin at the request of its original owner. I'm planning on overhauling the category soon. More detailed come. March 24, 1999. Added a list to Grape Guild. Great quote. Lucky for that girl, her story became an urban legend. Most people don't believe it's really happening, even if they're fascinated anyway. A perfect disappearing act, the real transforming into fiction. Now she's lived her disgraceful retirement in a remote world of a cartoon. But reality will haunt her conscience forever. Added some more user submission to worker degeneration. March 23, 1999. Added an avalanche of screenshots to Shrank's face. I can't believe people are walking to the bathroom at night and seeing these things. Making the website have convinced me to never run 3dwi after bedtime. Thank you, Pat Lover. No sounds, no face, wrong on both counts. I would not read the last recent update because it wasn't very particularly important to the story. If you'd like to, feel free to pause the video and read it yourself. Now, the fact that there are more than just creepy things people have seen. We got hidden messages, photographs, glitch, oddities, realize, and there's also audios like screaming and whispering, even though this screensaver claims it doesn't have any audio. I want you guys to keep in mind from these recent updates. PGR-Pin, which I will explain it later on. Ray's Guild is something I'm still trying to figure it out what this whole message means. For my theory, it seems like it's indicating that reality Amber is gone from the real world, and now she is somehow trapped inside this virtual world and virtuality Amber forever. This is just my thought, but the phrase Gray's Guild seems to suggest that Grace could have helped Amber, but she failed to do so. So now, Amber and Grace are actually more than just an AIs. They were real people who somehow got stuck in this reality. I don't know why I'm saying this, I'm just saying random things at this point that doesn't make any sense. Worker degeneration, I will explain it later on too. After this, we see that Amber is sitting on a bench while Rebecca and Pat seem to be glitching each other. Both then doesn't seem to have any collusion at all, and Amber doesn't even aware on what they were doing. I can't make out what these two were trying to do. They're either fighting or mad at each other. I don't know what this represents, but it's probably glitch in the matrix. What is PGR-Pin? PGR-Pin is one of 3dwi first popular sighting. The letter PGR stands for Pat, Joe, and Rebecca, 3 characters on the island. When these 3 adults approaching Amber in the following formation facing her, it's called a PGR-Pin. Amber is in the center of the formation. The PGR-Pin isn't complete unless all 3 adults are close enough to prevent Amber from moving, or in other words, to pin her in place. This is a very strict and specific requirements that not met often. Formation in this particular shapes are uncommon between any 4 characters. When they do form, they are spontaneous and brief. They usually reorganize themselves into a more stable circle, or rather diamonds like this. Why is the PGR significant? According to the story, it triggered the following sequence of the events. 1. All 4 characters disappear instantaneously. 2nd, the world is replaced with darkness. 3rd, in that darkness appears a photograph of a child in clothes that represents amber pinstripes. She is sometimes injured, sometimes not. 4. An audio clip of a young woman's scream or multiple scream plays from the speaker is usually interpreted as Amber's voice, but sometimes as the voice of an off-camera witness. 5th, the world reappears. Pat, Joe, Rebecca, and Amber reappear at the front door of the house one by one. Amber is the last to appear. No evidence of the events remains. Most accounts miss the first 3 steps in the sequence. It's only when they hear the scream that they started pay attention to what's happening on the screen. 3dwi doesn't officially play audio, but many stories reported sounds. They usually describe very loud or very quiet sounds like scream or whispers, with little in between. We have a page just for whisper-related sightings, most involving Amber pleas for help. Much pride is taken in the skills of recognizing these whispers as quickly as possible, since they often precede other events for which screenshots are desirable. No whisper precedes the PGR pin, unfortunately. Photographs are also a common theme in these sightings. 3dwi appears to have heavy preoccupation with the real world, and in particular with real human bodies, from living and healthy to mangled or emaciated or dead. In this case, when Amber doesn't display any physical injuries, her transformation into a human body is often interpreted as an act of violence itself. In general, any movement between fiction and reality in either direction is treated with an undertones of terror. Description of the photo vary. It may be that people are seeing the same photo, remembering it differently. It's not hard to believe that a disturbing and sudden scream is shocking people into seeing or remembering injuries that aren't there. But it is also possible that 3dwi is displaying different photos of the same girl as varying levels of injury, perhaps dependent on the context of the simulation, as Amber's plights have been shown to progress in severity over time. Who is the girl in the picture? Until we have a legitimate screenshot, we have little to go on, and this one have proven challenging to capture. Jake the Masked Cow had quite a fright. He writes, "I'm never running it overnight ever again. Holy shit, it woke me the f*** up. I'd never been so scared in my entire life. I was asleep and then an ear-splitting scream. What the f***? Pat Lawyer lied to me. Her website said that there are no sounds in the screensaver. Well, guess what? There's sounds, motherfucker." Ashley B heard too and caught a look at something interesting. Ashley writes, "Because it was the last thing I've ever expected to happen in 3dwi. I have to admit, I was jolted and shaking for a good hour afterwards. I knew the discovery page was wrong about other things, but somehow, this one thing I trusted, well, my volume was turned up quite high, so it was really something else. I only got the shortest glimpse at the screen before it reverted back to the status quo. It was dark, but I saw the dim shape of a human, realistically proportioned, dressed in pink and white, like Amber. A photograph, I think. It wasn't moving. It feels like to me that this PGR pin is more of a ritual to trap Amber from escaping back to reality. It is just my thoughts, but still very scary in some way. The fact that when Ashley said that she's also witnessed something even more scary than this, I saw a dim shape of a human, realistically proportioned, dressed in pink and white like Amber. A photograph, I think. It wasn't moving. I think you can already understand at this point, so I don't need to explain it any further. In this scene, there wasn't much context to point out, so I don't think it's very important either way. Just three of the characters having a random conversation while Howlin just sniffing the grass. Yeah, I said it. Coming back to the question mark for him once again. It's getting worse and worse. The more I watch, the more I notice, the more I understand, the more bow it's become. With the things it shows me, every time I come to some new revelation, the screensaver shows me more. But most other people don't see these things. And if I have someone in the room with me, they don't happen. Are you telling me, Pat Lawyer, with the 10 billion hours she been watching 3dwi, hasn't seen any of these things? Getting dangerous in here. Pat Lawyer is a criminal. I have family who used to live down the street from her. Nobody in their right mind would trust Pat Lawyer. Pat Lawyer should not be allowed to run a 3D Workers Island fans website. She should be in prison. Anyone who wants detail is free to message me. I'm Good Kid 85 on AIM. Damn it, Good Kid! And he's banned. That was fast. Pat Lawyer is always online. She reads every post the second you submit it. You cannot evade her. Good Kid got banned. We did not know whether he or she telling the truth or this is just a host. But from this point onward, I feel like Good Kid was actually telling the truth all along. But there's this one comment that tripping me out. Coming from Weird Tar Guy. Pat Lawyer is always online. She read every post the second you submit it. You cannot evade her. Which he's right. Good Kid posted the comment at 11:18 p.m. and then it took only under 10 minutes to get bans from Pat Lawyer. Even being the Discord moderator is crazy. Holy crap! What did I just watch? So my theory is that Pat is using the computer, right? There's the herb logo on the screen, indicating that Pat is surfing the web. But when another screensaver shows up, it blew my mind completely. The way it rotated from Earth to 3D Red Hound and then back to the herb could mean that Pat from 3D Worker Islands is actually Pat Lawyer herself? And the discovery page, the comments are also posted inside that virtual world, not in real life. Basically, Pat in 3D Workers Island is communicating with the real world. Pat Lawler was never actually a real person, but an AI, and maybe even a human, is inside that screensaver. I don't know if my theory is right or not, it's just something that stuck in my head throughout the story. Does this mean all 6 workers are actually real person that somehow got stuck inside the screensaver? I don't know. I do not have any proof or answer to it. What is worker degeneration? Worker degeneration is something akin to injury or damage. This damage is associated with an active entity, which 3dwi calls a workers, hence the name of this page. It is not clear to me how this term came about. It wasn't invented by 3dwi, yet it implies a bit of knowledge about the screensaver internals, that the entry is associated in some fundamental way with the underlying worker concept. This is especially strange, since the only documented case of worker degenerations are tied to one character, that being Amber. Therefore, it seems premature to generalize this term to such an extent, but I'll use the established name. Have you ever seen a red amber? You've seen worker degeneration. This is an early stage. After this compression, and the result looks like this. This red ball seems inert. It doesn't move or interact with anything. But yes, the red ball is amber. These states have been interpreted as representing dehydration or malnutrition and or mutilation. And the many photographic sightings seem to confirm all these interpretations equalize. But most of all, it's become associated with small, muffled screaming and therefore with pains. It doesn't take long for this red ball to start shrinking and quieting down until sooner or later it can't be seen or heard anymore. Amber will usually respawn from the house at some time after compression, even while the red ball is still visible. The program will eventually continue as usual. Falling into asphalt tells the story. Letting the screensaver go longer periods have unlocked something, and now I'm seeing all sorts of funny shit like red amber. She go in the house, come out redder, goes behind the house, come back redder again, come back weird, and slow crawls around until pop. She's just a ball on the ground that's everyone ignore, and that's that. Nathan Manfield kept the screensaver running all day and night. I went away for 8 hours, and when I got back, there's a bunch of red spears scattering around and making noise. Altogether, it sounded like a chorus of dissonant humming. Now I'm wondering just how long my dog had to listen to that shit. This one is from Tommy. How many of them are sitting at the bottom of the ocean? I just can't help but to feel hopeless about everything. Nobody will ever help me, and I would never help myself. I'm too afraid, even to reach out. I'm not even writing this right now. This message exists only in my head. This whole website exists only in my head. 3D Workers Islands? What is this? Would I really put this online? Would I really give anyone the slightest glimpse into my world? This is fake. This is all fake, and nobody will ever see it. Dude Thomas, I hear you, and I understand. Suffering in silence is such a hard word. Notice how this post reminds me of the one Good Kid commented on about 4 stages of cutinacnate disease, which is a very similar topic. Both talk about red, skin, and islands. It's like Good Kid predicted the program itself, or maybe predicted the future, I don't know. Not to mention, because of the ban, Good Kid profile pictures also turn red, almost like red amber. Coincidence? Maybe. Thomas' post is oddly weird too. He said things like, nobody will ever help me. I'm too afraid even to reach out. I'm not even writing this right now. And this message only exists in my head. It almost feels like this message is coming from the virtual world of Thomas, not the real life world. This time, we only see just Grace on the islands itself with nobody else. Suddenly, the screen cut to another screensaver with tons of color sphere splashing down in this next scenes. The whole story is about a weird screensaver called 3D Workers Island, where 6 characters do random things on a tiny island. The strange part is that nobody knows who made the screensaver. The Inside 3dwi says it was created by Pat Lawyer herself, but the discovery page claimed that the program is unknown, so it's hard to believe who is right and who is wrong. It seems like the characters just move around and interact in an unpredictable ways. Sometimes they do normal things, but other times they act like they have their own personality to it. Especially Grace, Amber, and Pat. Or maybe even the others like Rebecca, Joe, and Howland, who start feeling more real than just an AI computer characters. As the story goes on, people who try the screensaver notice some really weird things happening, like glitches and strange moments. Everyone feels that something was off. People witness weird image, glitches, scary audio like screaming and whispering that made people even created a website called Inside 3dwi to share the secret behind 3D Workers Islands with the world. The main focus of the screensaver always seemed to be aimed at Amber only. There are a lot of questions I cannot explain or understand. It is unclear to me whether these 6 characters are real people who somehow got stuck inside the screensaver or not. And why is Amber the only one who turns into a red sphere? How come Good Kid predicted the whole program itself? Is Good Kid Amber from 3D Worker Islands? Why does Pat Lawler hate Amber so much? Too many questions for me to think and solve on my own. Until I suddenly found this Reddit post. Shout out to Zaki Tarnish, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, if not I'm sorry, for this pretty amazing speculation that even I could have thought of that myself. So first up, let's talk about grayscale. It was one of the methods I kept scratching my head over and over again, trying to understand its true meaning behind it after I read it. But then I saw Zaki says these 3 lines. Amber died and her soul would transfer to this 3D islands that Grace call the disgraceful retirement home. The whole screensaver subtly depicts the drama Amber went through and was made to bring her justice. It is great guilt over being unable to assist Amber, and this quote reflects her pity for Amber. Even though Zaki says these lines were pretty much incorrect, I feel like Zaki does actually have a point, and it somewhat aligns with one of my theory too, like indicating that reality Amber's gone from real world, now she's trapped inside this virtual world as in virtuality Amber forever, and Grace Gill seemed to be suggest that Grace could have helped Amber, but she failed to do so. So yeah, Grace and Amber's souls would actually transfer into this 3D Workers Island. Grace constantly feels sad and guilty throughout the story because she couldn't save Amber from being trapped in this virtual world. Now both of them are stuck here forever due to Grace's mistake. At least that's what I thought. This also implies that not only Grace and Amber are inside the screensaver, but other characters who were once real people have also been transferred here. So they were never advanced AI from the beginning, but more like being controlled by the AI program itself. Crazy thought, right? But I'll leave it up for you all to decide. These are just my stupid theories. The reason why Pat hate Amber because she's being lazy. Even though we does see some pictures of Amber does actually do something useful, Pat never acknowledged it. Holland is the youngest one and never does anything useful at all. But Pat doesn't seem to care and just keep targeting Amber instead. Even when people said that their favorite character was Amber, Pat literally doesn't give a crap about it. Now that's what I call a bad parent. Remember when I said that PGR pin is like a ritual to keep Amber from escaping back to reality? The only question left here is why Rebecca and Joe? Zaki says all 3 of these adults have hurt Amber in some way. Joe and Rebecca may have been accomplished by not doing anything about Amber, even though they knew what was happening. To be honest, I feel like Rebecca and Joe's are being controlled by Pat, because there is no, and I mean no instance where the 2 of them ever hurt Amber throughout the story, so I kinda doubted that. About the Shane audio, Zaki says there are stories reporting sounds of Amber pleas for help coming from out of the speaker. despite the game having no audio. Maybe these pleas for help were initially directed at Joe and Rebecca. I'm honestly not sure what to make of this. Zaki, for my theory, the other two are pleasing for help because they're actually being controlled by Pat and wanted to be free, while Amber is pleading for help because she's literally, and I mean literally, suffering inside that screensaver. At least in my stupid theory. What do you guys think? The concept of how worker degeneration works inside 3dwi and why is it so similar to Cutie Lacune is beyond my understanding. The fake to see that good kid, which is actually Amber, invented it, Cutie Lacune, was a hidden message sent by Amber herself. She was trying to let others know about the secret behind 3D Workers Islands while avoiding past suspicion that she was the one sending the message and also avoiding getting banned. The disease describes how your skin becomes redder and starts losing its own layers, leaving a large patch of disconnected skin tissue on your body called skin islands. Eventually, this leads to a complete loss of epidermis, which is crazy stuff, but the fact that worker degeneration also have the same exact meaning like Cutie Lacune is so coincidentally weird. Zaki says, worker degeneration started with the victim showing redness on their skin, and the condition is worsened until the skin is completely gone. In the case of worker degeneration, they eventually become a red ball, just like in stage 3 of the disease, where it's become irreversible. Worker degeneration reached a similar point where Amber became a red ball. A brand new Amber then spawned from the house, and the cycle continued. Basically, an endless screaming, hair pulling, and despair, like Good Kid said. Then there's this moment where I think Amber is actually talking about how horrible Pat is, but she get banned afterward. And her profile picture turned red, just like how she gotten worsened until she become a red ball. There are a lot, and I mean a lot more questions that are still unanswered to this day. Because this whole project was just a short horror story, and I don't know if the creator of Petscop and now 3D Workers Island, Tony Domenico, will ever finish it, since it was scrapped like a long time ago. But it would be actually cool if he did finishing the project, because there's still like a lot of unanswering questions, and without that full project thing, we probably never know what the answer could look like and what even is the point of face screensaver. And will these 6 characters ever like escape back to reality? Who knows? It's just bugging my head whenever I think of it. Anyway, thank you for watching the stupid horror theories videos I made. I'm not exactly proud or great when it comes to make videos like this, because I probably always giving false information. And it's also hard for me, like, this type of video require like puzzle solvings or thinking through stuff, something like that. Very hard for me, but it was really fun making this video. Also, a big thank to Zaki Tarnish, once again, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, I'm sorry, for the amazing speculation. Without you, I'll be still scratching my head. As always, keep moving forward in your life, and I'll probably see you guys on another video. See ya.